When I first thought about equine enrichment, I thought it looked a bit like this: a puzzle, a game, something extra I set up to make Penny think. Although Penny has her own interpretation. She seems convinced these cups are treat balls and that if she rolls them around long enough, another piece of apple might magically appear. But after learning more about enrichment, I realised something. I'd actually been enriching Penny's life for years. I just didn't know that was what I was doing. For most of Penny's life, I found that one long hack a week helped keep her mentally sound. Sometimes we would be out for up to 3 hours, leaving our own farm and heading out onto the wider estate. At the time, I just knew that Penny seemed to need it. But think about what she was actually doing. Moving through a changing environment, seeing, hearing and investigating different things, navigating different terrain, exploring a much bigger world. And even something as simple as taking Penny out to graze in hand was giving her an opportunity to move, choose where to eat and explore somewhere different. I didn't call any of this enrichment, it was just part of our life together. Then last year I watched some webinars about equine enrichment and they completely changed the way I thought about it. Because instead of starting with toys, they started with ethology. In other words, what does a horse naturally do? And how can we create more opportunities for our domesticated horses to perform those behaviours? Horses evolved to move, to forage, to explore, to interact socially, to investigate their environment. And enrichment can be about creating more opportunities for those behaviours. That was when I realised enrichment could be so much bigger than a puzzle or a treat ball. It could be about enriching the horse's life. One of the biggest changes I made after watching those webinars was to think differently about foraging. Now, I had always taken Penny grazing in hand, but deliberate foraging and browsing, that came later. Instead of food always appearing in exactly the same place in exactly the same form, I started thinking about opportunities to search, to browse, to encounter different horse-safe forage. Even in the stable I began thinking about variety rather than simply providing one uniform forage source. And this is something I'm still exploring and learning about. But it changed the question from, how do I keep my horse occupied, to, what natural behaviour am I creating an opportunity for? And then, of course, there is thinking. This is probably my favourite part. Penny and I have tried cognitive puzzles, the 3-jug game, hiding a treat and asking her to find it, scent work and targeting. For me, targeting sits firmly in cognitive enrichment. Penny has to understand the concept, identify the target and work out what the game is. Although I may now have created a slight problem. Because recently, Penny has started seeing targets everywhere. A pile of rug bags, Halloween decorations. Apparently, if it's something unusual or new, it must be a target. Touch the thing, get the treat, thank you very much. So I may have accidentally created a horse who thinks the entire world is an interactive puzzle with prizes. Scent work opened up another world because horses experience their environment differently from us. And giving Penny opportunities to investigate and use her senses made me realise that enrichment doesn't always have to involve teaching a specific behaviour. Sometimes we can simply create an opportunity and see what the horse does with it. And that brings me to something I found particularly interesting. Good enrichment can give the horse freedom within the experience. Freedom to initiate, freedom to repeat, freedom to form their own responses, and freedom to self-pace. The horse doesn't necessarily have to interact with the thing we have provided, and they don't have to interact with it in the way we expect it. as Penny has demonstrated on several occasions. But perhaps that is part of the point, because enrichment can involve learning, and learning can change behaviour. A horse who is given opportunities to explore, to investigate, to solve problems and to form their own responses is gaining experience of interacting with their world. And this made me wonder about something else. What happens when something unexpected appears? I'm not suggesting that enrichment magically stops horses from spooking. Penny is still a horse, and horses can spook. But could regularly having opportunities to investigate novelty, make choices and form responses help a horse become more adaptable when life presents something difficult or unexpected? Could a spook sometimes become an opportunity to investigate? This is something I've increasingly tried to allow with Penny. Where it is safe to do so, instead of immediately trying to make the scary thing irrelevant, sometimes I let her look,
Good girl.
think, investigate and work things out.
That's very good.
Because perhaps those moments are learning opportunities too. The more I learn about enrichment, the less I think of it as something I occasionally give Penny, and the more I think about the life she gets to experience. Can she move? Can she forage? Can she explore? Can she investigate? Can she think? Can she spend time with other horses? Can she make appropriate choices? Does she have opportunities to do some of the things that matter to a horse? And I think this is why enrichment has become one of my favourite subjects. Because yes, it can be 3 jugs and a treat, and that is fun. It can be scent work, it can be a cognitive puzzle, and it can apparently
Be a rug in a wash bag.
that your horse has independently designated as a target. But it can also be a long hack, leaving the farm and exploring the wider world, investigating something new, or simply having the time and freedom to stop, look and work something out. I started learning about enrichment because I wanted to find more things for Penny to do, but I think what I actually discovered was a different way of looking at the things we already do, and a new question to keep asking myself. What does my horse naturally want and need to do, and where can I create more opportunities for her to do it? Because perhaps enrichment isn't just about keeping our horses busy. Perhaps it's about making their world a little bigger, giving them more opportunities to be horses, and enriching the life they get to live.